June 14th, 1944, the rolling hills of Normandy, France, just east of the invasion beaches. Dawn's first light filters through a low mist, turning the dew-kissed grass into a shimmering veil. You can almost feel the chill seeping through your boots, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and distant salt from the Channel. Sergeant Elias Thorne crouches behind a hedgerow, his M1 Garand rifle slung across his back, fingers tracing the rough bark of an ancient oak. His breath comes in shallow bursts, heart pounding like a war drum in the silence before the storm. Thorne isn't alone. To his left, Corporal Lena Vasquez adjusts the strap of her pack, her dark eyes scanning the horizon where the faint rumble of Allied artillery echoes from the west. She's a cartographer by trade, pulled from a desk job in Washington to this ragtag unit that's more theater troupe than infantry. "You smell that?" she whispers, her voice barely cutting the fog. "Burnt rubber and paint, like a tire factory exploded." Thorne nods, wiping sweat from his brow despite the cool morning. The unit's been at it all night, unloading crates from concealed jeeps, their tires crunching softly on the gravel path leading from a hidden orchard. Further down the line, Lieutenant Arthur Pinkerton, the wiry artist from Brooklyn with paint-stained fingers, directs a team of engineers. He's barking orders in a hushed tone, his Brooklyn accent clipping the words like machine gun fire. "Easy on that tank, boys. She's a lady, not a Sherman." The tank in question isn't steel and fury. It's inflatable, a rubber behemoth deflating slightly from the night's humidity, its olive-drab skin sagging like a punctured balloon. Painted with meticulous detail, rivets, treads, even faux exhaust vents, it fools the eye from a distance. Pinkerton steps back, hands on hips, admiring his canvas. From the air. Jerry's spotters won't know the difference. We'll give 'em a whole Panzer division to chew on. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, known in whispers as the Ghost Army, have been ghosts in the machine of war since D-Day. Activated just months ago under the cover of secrecy, this unit of artists, actors and engineers, over 1,000 strong, exists to deceive. No frontline charges for them. Their battlefield is illusion. Sound trucks mimic the growl of engines, fake radio traffic buzzes with phantom orders, and these decoys? They're the stars of the show. Rolled up like carpets in supply trucks, the inflatable tanks, jeeps, and artillery pieces deploy in hours, vanishing just as quickly. Thorne rises, signaling to Vasquez. They move together toward the assembly point, weaving through the underbrush where more decoys take shape. A dozen men grunt as they pump air into a cluster of M4 Sherman replicas, the hiss of valves punctuating the dawn chorus of birds. One soldier, Private Harlan Brooks, a former puppeteer from Chicago, chuckles nervously. "If the Krauts get close enough to touch these, we're deader than disco." But Pinkerton shoots him a glare. "They won't. Our job's to make 'em think Patton's Third Army is barreling down their flank, distract 'em from the real push at Caen." As the sun crests the horizon, casting long shadows over the faux armor, Thorne climbs a nearby rise for a better vantage. From here, the deception sprawls like a mirage, 20 rubber tanks in staggered formation, flanked by dummy half-tracks and troop carriers. Engineers wire in speakers tuned to broadcast the clank of treads and shouts of sergeants. Vasquez unrolls a map, her pencil sketching sightlines. Scouts from the 12th SS Panzer will patrol this ridge by noon. If they spot this, it'll report back as an entire corps, tanks, infantry, the works. The tension coils tighter as a distant aircraft drone splits the sky, a German FW-190, its silhouette sharp against the clouds. Thorne drops flat, pulse racing, dirt grinding into his cheek. The plane banks low, engines throbbing like a predator's heartbeat. You hold your breath with him, the world narrowing to that speck of death overhead. Will the rubber hold? The pilot circles once, twice, his observer leaning out with binoculars. From 5,000 feet, the decoys gleam authentically, tread marks etched in the mud by careful dragging, olive paint chipped to mimic battleware. The plane veers east, vanishing into the haze. A collective exhale ripples through the unit. Pinkerton pumps a fist. That's one for the ghosts. But Thorne knows it's just the beginning. Word will spread through German lines. An American armored thrust, massive and unexpected. It buys time for the real forces to maneuver, to crack the Atlantic Wall's remnants. By mid-morning, the site buzzes with controlled chaos. Sound technicians calibrate amplifiers, their vans camouflaged with netting and branches. Brooks tests a recording, canned orders in English laced with static. Alpha Company, advance to grid 47, flank the bastards. It echoes hollowly, then fades into the wind. Vasquez joins Thorne at the map table, a rickety folding stand under an apple tree. Intelligence says the 21st Panzer's pulling reserves south. If this works, we save lives at the beachhead. Thorne lights a cigarette, the match flaring briefly. Smoke curls upward, mingling with the rubbery tang. He's no artist like Pinkerton, just a farm boy from Iowa drafted into this mad charade, but the weight of it settles on him, the lives hanging on these balloons. One prick, one curious patrol, and the illusion shatters. Yet as the first trucks rumble in with more decoys, he feels a spark of something fierce, pride maybe, or defiance. Noon approaches, the sun burning off the mist. German scouts, likely from the 352nd Infantry Division, will crest that far hill soon. Thorne shoulders his rifle, eyes locked on the horizon. The ghost army fades into position, invisible puppeteers pulling strings of deceit. In the distance, real shells whistle, a reminder of the war's true face. But here, in this pocket of Normandy, illusion is the sharpest weapon. The patrol appears first as dust plumes, then as shapes. 3 Opel Blitz trucks, canvas flapping, trailed by motorcycles. SS runes glint on helmets. Thorne signals retreat. The ghosts melt into the woods, leaving their army to stand alone. From a concealed foxhole, he watches through binoculars. The lead truck halts, an officer stepping out, pointing. Excitement ripples through the Germans. They scribble notes, snap photos. One scout approaches a tank, hand outstretched, but hesitates, turning back. Too risky. As they withdraw, radio antennas bob, carrying the lie northward. An entire corps, they report. Panic will ripple through command tents, orders rerouted, defenses stretched thin. Thorne smiles grimly. The rubber has rolled and the ghosts have won the morning. But the war demands more. Endless deceptions, night after night. For now, though, in the shadow of fake steel, victory tastes like painted air. Afternoon sun beats down on the Normandy fields, turning the air into a heavy soup of heat and the acrid bite of rubber. You can taste it on your tongue, that synthetic tang mixing with the sweat trickling down your neck as Sergeant Elias Thorne wipes his brow and scans the retreating dust clouds from the German patrol. The scouts' engines fade into the distance, leaving only the hum of cicadas and the distant thud of artillery like a heartbeat from the front lines. Thorne lowers his binoculars, the metal warm against his palms, and exhales slowly. The foxhole's dirt walls press in close, damp and cloying. But for now it's safety. Lieutenant Arthur Pinkerton slithers over from his own concealed position, his face smeared with camouflage grease paint that makes him look like a raccoon escaped from a vaudeville act. They bought it hook, line and sinker, he mutters, grinning through the grime. His voice is low, laced with that Brooklyn edge, sharp as a switchblade. Saw the officer pointing like he'd spotted El Dorado. Whole corps, my ass. They'll think it's the second coming of Patton. Pinkerton claps Thorne on the shoulder, the impact jarring in the confined space. Around them, the unit stirs like shadows coming alive, engineers emerging from hedgerows, cartographers folding maps with practiced snaps. Corporal Lena Vasquez is already on the move, her boots sinking into the soft earth as she heads toward the decoy site. She's all business, ponytail swinging like a metronome, her notebook tucked under one arm. Radio chatter's picking up, she says, joining Thorne and Pinkerton as they climb out of the hole. The grass crunches underfoot, releasing a fresh wave of that earthy scent, now overlaid with the faint ozone of overheated amplifiers. German frequencies are lighting up, orders rerouting from the Orne River, pulling panzers away from the real assault at Caen. We just saved a division from getting chewed up. Thorne nods, slinging his M1 Garand over his shoulder. The rifle's weight is a familiar anchor, its wooden stock worn smooth from months of drills back in England. He glances at the inflatable tanks, still standing sentinel in their mock formation, 20 of them, hulking illusions that had the scouts scribbling furiously. One Sherman replica lists slightly, a valve hissing softly like a sigh of relief. Private Harlan Brooks, the puppeteer with fingers nimble as a pickpocket, kneels beside it, deflating the beast with a pump's reverse churn. The rubber folds in on itself, deflating with a long, wheezy groan that echoes unnaturally in the quiet fields. Like packing away a bad dream, Brooks quips, wiping his hands on his fatigues. Sweat stains darken his shirt, and his Chicago drawl cuts the tension like a knife through butter. The disassembly begins in earnest. A ballet of efficiency honed from weeks of practice in the English countryside. Teams of 4 haul the rubber tanks toward concealed jeeps, rolling them up like oversized carpets, the material slapping against the ground with dull thuds. Pinkerton oversees it all, his paintbrush now tucked behind his ear like a cigarette directing with gestures more than words. "Watch the treads! Don't snag 'em on that barbed wire," he calls to a pair of engineers wrestling a half-track dummy. The fake vehicle, wired with speakers that had blared phantom engine roars earlier, collapses under their hands, its canvas frame crumpling like wet cardboard. From your vantage, crouched low with Thorne, you see the sweat beading on their brows, the strain in their shoulders as they load crates onto flatbeds camouflaged with apple branches. But the victory is short-lived. Intelligence briefs crackle over the unit's field radio, a bulky SCR 536 set up in a ditch, its antenna disguised as a sapling. Vasquez tunes it, static hissing like angry geese, before a voice cuts through. Colonel Billy Harris, the Ghost Army's commander, his tone clipped from a forward HQ near Bayou. "Ghost 1, this is Spectre. Confirmed deception hold. New orders, relocate east to grid Echo 22 by dusk. Inflate artillery battery. Draw fire from the 101st Airborne's push. Acknowledge." Vasquez keys the mic, her voice steady. "Spectre, Ghost 1 copies. Relocating Echo 22. Over." Thorne feels the shift immediately. That familiar coil of urgency tightening in his gut. No rest for the wicked or the ghosts. He helps Brooks secure the last tank, the rubber bunching under ropes that bite into his calloused hands. The scent intensifies as they work. Rubber, paint, and now the metallic tang of machine oil from the real jeeps idling nearby, their engines purring softly to mask any noise. "East to Echo 22, Thorne mutters, hauling a crate onto his shoulder. It's heavy, filled with speaker arrays and dummy ammo boxes, the wood splintered from rough handling. "That's bocage country, thick hedges, perfect for ambushes. If Jerry sends a recon flight." Pinkerton overhears, falling into step beside them as the convoy forms. Jeeps and trucks snake through the orchard, tires churning mud into ruts that could betray them if not careful. "Then we give 'em a show they'll never forget," he says. Lighting a lucky strike, the matches flare, brief and bright. Smoke trails behind him like a ghost's breath. "Last week in Devon, we fooled a whole Luftwaffe squadron with nothing but smoke pots and a few painted trucks. From up there it's all shadows and shapes." His eyes sparkle with that artist's fire, undimmed by the mud caking his boots. The unit moves out under the cover of scattered clouds, the sun dipping lower, painting the sky in oranges and purples that bleed into the hedgerows. Thorne rides shotgun in the lead jeep, Vasquez at the wheel, her hands steady on the column shift. The road, more path than highway, winds through sunken lanes, Ancient tracks flanked by earthen banks overgrown with thorns that snag at the canvas tops. You bounce with them, the jeep's springs protesting each rut, the wind whipping through carrying whispers of the sea. Brooks rides in the back, clutching a map case, his face pale under the freckles. Heard the 12th SS is hunting decoy units. Think they suspect? Nah. Pinkerton calls from the following truck, his voice carrying over the engine growl. They think we're real till we're not. That's the beauty. But Thorne isn't so sure. As they crest a rise, he spots a glint in the sky. A Messerschmitt Bf 109, circling lazily like a hawk. The pilot's too high for details, but the drone of its Daimler-Benz engine sends a chill down Thorne's spine. He signals halt, the convoy freezing in the lane's shadow. Hearts hammer in unison. You feel it in your chest, that suspended moment where one burst from its 20mm cannons could shred the illusion, and them. Vasquez kills the engine, the silence crashing in. The plane banks, wings catching the light, but it doesn't dive. Instead, it veers north, perhaps chasing a real target. Relief washes over the unit like cool rain. Close one, Thorne breathes, restarting the jeep with a cough of exhaust. They press on, the path narrowing into a tunnel of green, branches clawing at the sides. By dusk, they reach Echo 22, a shallow valley ringed by bocage, the hedges thick as tank armor. Unloading begins under twilight's purple haze, the air cooling rapidly. Dew already forming on the grass. Engineers pump air into howitzers this time. Massive rubber guns on wheeled platforms, their barrels painted with rust streaks for authenticity. Pinkerton sketches adjustments in the dirt, a flashlight beam cutting the gloom. Position 'em here, staggered line. Sound trucks 50 yards back. Blast those barrage recordings at 200 hours. Thorne sets up perimeter watch, his rifle at the ready, ears straining for patrols. Vasquez joins him on a rise, binoculars sweeping the dark. "This'll pull their artillery from the airborne drop zones," she says softly, the night's chill raising gooseflesh on her arms. Ghosts saving paratroopers. Poetic, huh? Stars prick the sky overhead, indifferent witnesses. As the decoys swell to life, hissing into shape, Thorne spots movement in the tree line. A fox, perhaps, or something worse. The war's edges blur here, illusion bleeding into reality. Brooks tests the speakers, a low rumble of 105mm fire, canned explosions that shake the ground. From afar, it's a battery in action, drawing eyes and shells away from the true fight. Night deepens, the valley alive with whispers and the scent of inflating deceit. Thorne settles into watch, the weight of the unseen pressing down. The ghosts are in place, ready to haunt again. But in the quiet, he wonders how long the rubber can hold before the real steel comes calling. The moon hangs low over the Bocage Valley, a sliver of silver slicing through the ink-black sky, casting jagged shadows from the hedgerows that claw at the earth like skeletal fingers. You can hear the night's breath, the soft rustle of leaves in a fitful breeze, the distant pop of small arms fire from the real front lines, and closer now, the rhythmic hiss of valves as the last inflatable howitzers swell to life. Sergeant Elias Thorne shifts on the damp grass of his vantage point, the cold seeping through his fatigues, his M1 Garand cradled across his knees like an old friend. His eyes, sharp from years of scanning Iowa cornfields for coyotes, pick out the shapes below. The rubber artillery battery taking form, barrels pointed skyward in mock defiance, their olive-drab skins taut and gleaming faintly under the moonlight. Lieutenant Arthur Pinkerton paces the valley floor, his boots squelching in the mud, flashlight clipped to his belt, casting erratic beams as he inspects the lineup. "Angle that 15 degrees left. Catch the dawn light just right," he whispers to a cluster of engineers, their faces ghost pale in the glow. The air reeks of fresh rubber and the sharp chemical bite of adhesive from hasty repairs, mingling with the earthy rot of fallen leaves. Private Harlan Brooks fiddles with the sound truck's controls, his puppeteer's hands dancing over dials, coaxing a low hum from the speakers. It's a preview. The growl of diesel engines idling, overlaid with the metallic clank of breech blocks slamming home. "Ready to wake the dead at 0200, Brooks murmurs, his Chicago accent thick with fatigue, wiping grease from his chin with the back of his hand. Corporal Lena Vasquez hunkers nearby, her map spread on a stump, pencil scratching updates by the dim light of a hooded lantern. The valley's contours unfold on paper, ridges that could hide a panzer ambush, streams that might swallow a jeep whole. If their patrols swing south from the Orne, they'll hit this sightline by first light, she says to Thorne when he joins her, sliding down the slope with a cascade of loose dirt. Her breath fogs in the chill, and she pulls her collar tighter, the wool scratching her neck. Thorne squats beside her, the map's creases like veins under his fingers. "Then we make sure they see what we want. No slip-ups." His voice is gravel rough, honed by chain-smoking camels during endless night watches. The clock ticks toward 200, the unit coiled like a spring in the dark. Thorne takes position behind a thicket of hawthorn, thorns snagging his sleeve as he peers through binoculars. The decoys stand silent now, hulking silhouettes against the starry backdrop. 8 howitzers, flanked by dummy ammo dumps and fake foxholes, stuffed with burlap sacks. Engineers have dragged real tire tracks through the mud, the ruts fresh and convincing, leading from a concealed supply road that vanishes into the woods. Pinkerton, ever the showman, has added flourishes, canvas tarps draped over crews that rustle faintly in the wind, painted with silhouettes of GIs at work. At precisely 0200, Brooks flips the switch. The valley erupts, not in fire, but in thunderous illusion. Speakers crackle to life, blasting a symphony of war, the deep-throated boom of 105mm shells launching, followed by the whine of incoming rounds and the chatter of 50-cal machine guns. Explosions, canned recordings layered with pyrotechnic pops from hidden charges, shake the ground, sending vibrations up through Thorne's boots. You feel it in your bones, that artificial fury, the air pulsing with the scent of cordite from the smoke pots ignited along the line. Flares arc overhead from hand launchers, their magnesium glare painting the scene in stark whites and blacks, illuminating the rubber barrels as if in the heat of battle. From his perch, Thorne watches the deception unfold, heart thudding in sync with the blasts. Vasquez grips his arm, her nails digging in. There, movement on the ridge. Sure enough, silhouettes stir in the tree line opposite. German sentries, likely from the 21st Panzer's reconnaissance elements, rousing from their posts. Binocular lenses glint as they train on the valley, the flares reflecting like distant stars. One shouts, voice carrying faintly over the din, a guttural command in German, urgent and alarmed. Motorcycles rev in response, engines coughing to life, their headlamps slicing the dark like knives. The scouts approach cautiously, weaving through the bocage on dirt paths that parallel the stream. Thorne signals the unit to hold, ghosts in the machine, unseen and unheard. The sound trucks modulate, shifting to the urgent crackle of radio traffic. "Fire mission, Grid Baker 19, he rounds, rapid fire." Static-laced voices bark coordinates, mimicking a forward observer calling in support for an infantry push. Pinkerton, hidden in a ditch with a megaphone wired to the system, adds live flavor, shouts of "incoming" and "reload, damn it." His Brooklyn twang twisted into a southern drawl for authenticity. The lead motorcycle halts at the valley's edge, its rider dismounting, submachine gun at the ready. He creeps forward, helmeted head swiveling, the flare light catching the SS Eagle on his collar. Behind him, 2 more scouts fan out, one with a field phone uncoiling from a pack. They spot the battery clearly now, the howitzers belching smoke from hidden vents, shells, painted dowels, ejecting with puffs of dust. The air thrums with the illusion, ground trembling from buried vibrators, the acrid haze thickening like a real barrage. The scout freezes, then gestures wildly, scribbling in a notebook. From 500 yards, it's convincing. An American artillery position hammering away, supporting what they must assume is a major offensive. Thorne's pulse races. One wrong move, and those MP40s could chew through the rubber in seconds. But the scouts hold back, wary of the fire. The field phone operator dials frantically, his voice a harsh whisper into the receiver. Reports flooding back to command, painting a picture of overwhelming force, dozens of guns, perhaps a full battalion, poised to shatter their lines. Trucks grind into earshot from the German side, more reinforcements scrambling, their diesel rumble a counterpoint to the fake barrage. As the flares die, plunging the valley into shadow, the scouts withdraw, engines snarling as they retreat up the ridge. Brooks cuts the sound, the sudden silence deafening, broken only by the unit's ragged breaths. Pinkerton emerges mud-caked and exhilarated, pumping a fist. They ate it up. Whole damn battery reported. That'll yank their 88s from the airborne zones. Vasquez checks her watch, pencil flying across the map. Confirmed on the intercepts, Panzers diverting east. The 101st gets a clear drop. But elation sours quickly. Dawn's grey fingers creep over the horizon, and with it comes the drone of aircraft, Luftwaffe spotters, low and hunting. Thorne dives for cover as a Fieseler Storch buzzes the valley, its engine a wasp's whine. The pilot circles, observer hanging out with a camera, the lens winking in the light. The decoys, still inflated, catch the eye. Howitzers in disarray, casualties sprawled from the barrage. From the air, it's chaos, a unit under counter-battery fire, vulnerable and real. Shells whistle in response, real ones this time, from German guns miles away, zeroed on the reported position. The first impact's 50 yards short, earth fountaining in a roar of dirt and shrapnel that peppers the hedgerows. Thorne flattens, dirt blasting his face, the sting of fragments whizzing past. "Deflate and scatter!" Pinkerton yells, the unit springing into frantic motion. Pumps reverse with urgent hisses, rubber collapsing in waves, howitzers folding like defeated giants. Brooks hauls a speaker array, cords tangling his legs, while Vasquez grabs maps, stuffing them into her pack. Another shell craters the ground, the blast wave slamming Thorne like a fist, ringing his ears. You taste the cordite now, bitter and real, as the valley erupts in earnest. Engineers drag dummies into cover, tires screeching on the slick grass. A near miss shreds a half-track replica, rubber shreds flying like confetti. Thorne fires covering shots into the air, harmless, but enough to sell the panic, then sprints for the jeeps. Vasquez at his side. "Go, go!" she gasps, leaping aboard as the engine roars. The convoy peels out under smoke cover, jeeps bouncing wildly through the bocage, branches whipping the sides. Shells chase them, one glancing a truck's fender with a metallic screech. Thorne clings to the roll bar, wind tearing at his helmet, the valley shrinking behind in a haze of dust and fire. The deception worked, too well. German command, convinced of the threat, pours resources into the void. But the ghosts pay the price. Rubber and resolve tested to the breaking point. As they vanish into the morning mist, Thorne glances back. The valley smoulders, illusions shattered, but the lie endures. The real war rages on, paratroopers dropping unmolested miles away. Victory, Thorne thinks, carved from smoke and shadows. Yet the cost lingers, the whine of shells echoing in his skull, a reminder that ghosts can bleed. The morning mist clings to the bocage like a shroud, thick and grey, swallowing the echoes of the German shells as Sergeant Elias Thorne grips the jeep's roll bar, knuckles white against the scarred metal. The vehicle lurches through a sunken lane, tires churning mud into a frothy wake that splatters the undercarriage with wet slaps. You taste the acrid bite of cordite on the wind, mixed with the jeep's exhaust, a choking cocktail that burns your throat as Vasquez guns the engine, her jaw set like granite. Branches claw at the canvas top, thorns scraping like nails on a chalkboard, while behind them the valley fades into a smouldering haze, fires of twisted rubber marking where the illusions met reality. Private Harlan Brooks bounces in the back, his pack slamming against the spare tire with each rut, face ashen under the streaks of mud. "That was too damn close," he yells over the roar, clutching a deflated howitzer barrel like a lifeline, its rubber coiled limp and defeated. Lieutenant Arthur Pinkerton follows in the next jeep. His truck listing from the glancing shell hit, fender crumpled like tinfoil. He leans out, shouting forward, "Keep pushing east. Rally Point Bravo at the old mill by Euro 900. Spectre's gonna have our hides if we lose the gear." His voice cracks with adrenaline, the Brooklyn fire undimmed even as shrapnel pings off a distant hedgerow. Thorne risks a glance back, the binoculars dangling from his neck, swinging wildly. No pursuit yet, just the low drone of Luftwaffe spotters circling the valley like vultures, their engines a persistent buzz that sets his teeth on edge. The unit's convoy snakes through the labyrinth of hedges, jeeps and trucks, weaving in a tight column, camouflaged with netting that rustles like whispers. The air cools as they climb a gentle rise, dew dripping from overhanging leaves onto Thorne's helmet with cold plinks. Vasquez swerves to avoid a crater, likely from last night's real barrage, her hands steady on the wheel despite the tremor in her voice. "Intercepts say the 21st Panzer's biting the hook hard. They're shifting everything to counter our battery." The airborne drops clear. Ghosts did their job. But victory feels hollow, with the whine of those shells still ringing in Thorne's ears, a phantom echo that makes him flinch at every shadow. They reach the rally point by mid-morning, a crumbling stone mill beside a sluggish stream, its water wheel frozen in rust, overgrown with ivy that drapes the walls like funeral veils. The unit dismounts in hushed urgency, boots squelching on the mossy bank, the scent of wet stone and wild garlic rising sharp. Engineers fan out to secure the perimeter, rifles at the ready, while medics check for wounds, minor cuts from flying debris, a twisted ankle here and there, treated with sulfur powder that stings like fire. Pinkerton gathers the core team under the mill's sagging awning, a folding table improvised from ammo crates strewn with maps and ration tins. The air inside is musty, laced with the faint rot of grain long gone, and motes dance in the slivers of light, piercing the cracks. "We got lucky back there," he says, tracing a route with a grease pencil stub, his fingers still smudged from last night's paint. "But Jerry's onto something. Those scouts radioed photos. Command's ordering a full recon platoon to verify. We need to ghost up a new play, fake supply convoy, draw 'em into a kill zone for the Rangers." Vasquez nods, unrolling a fresh overlay, her pencil sketching convoy paths that snake toward the real push at St. Lo. Echo 33, 5 miles north, open fields, perfect for visuals, but exposed if they bring armor. Thorne leans against a beam, lighting a Camel with a Zippo that flares blue in the dimness. The smoke curls upward, soothing his frayed nerves, but his mind races. He's seen enough death in the hedgerows, real GIs shredded by 88s, not ghosts like them. And if they don't buy it, we end up as the main course. Brooks, bandaging a gash on his forearm, snorts. "Then we improvise. Like that time in England, painted a barn to look like a hangar, fooled a recon flight for days." His laugh is forced, eyes darting to the door where sentries peer into the mist. By noon, the mill buzzes with purpose. Teams unpack crates from the trucks, the wood splintering under crowbars with sharp cracks, revealing more decoys, inflatable trucks this time. Canvas-sided haulers meant to mimic a logistics train ferrying ammo and fuel to the Phantom core. The hiss of pumps fills the air again, rubber expanding with wheezy sighs, the synthetic smell overpowering the mill's dampness. Pinkerton directs the painting, brushes dipping into pots of OD green and khaki, adding details, mud splatters from Normandy clay, license plates stenciled in hasty white. Make 'em look battle-worn, boys. Jerry's no fool up close. Engineers rig the sound trucks with fresh recordings, the grind of gears shifting, the chatter of idling engines, overlaid with NCO barks in crisp English. Thorne volunteers for scout duty, slipping out with Vasquez toward Echo 33, their jeeps crawling parallel to the stream to mask the engine noise. The fields open up gradually, golden wheat swaying under a sky clearing to blue, but the bocage lingers in patches, natural fortresses that could hide a Tiger tank. You feel the tension in the air, thick as the humidity building for afternoon rain as they crest a low hill. Below, the site sprawls, a crossroads where sunken roads meet, ideal for a convoy illusion. But Thorne's binoculars catch glints first. Metal, moving. "Contact," he whispers, dropping low behind a furze bush, thorns pricking his palms. Vasquez freezes, her scope trained. Half-track and infantry, 12th SS, probing south, they're early. The Germans advance methodically, the Sandkef Z-251 rumbling over the ruts, its tracks churning earth into clods that fly like shrapnel. 20 troops dismount, MP40s slung, spreading in a skirmish line, their Feldgrau uniforms blending with the shadows. An officer, Oberleutnant by the pips, barks orders, pointing toward the mill's distant silhouette. Thorne's heart hammers. If they push this way, the rally point's compromised. "We lead 'em off," Vasquez says, keying her radio softly. "Sound truck, play the convoy approach, draw 'em to the fields." Back at the mill, Brooks complies. The speakers hidden in the tree line crackling to life. The illusion begins. A low rumble builds, swelling to the thunder of dozens of trucks, horns blaring faintly, tires hissing on gravel. The Germans halt, heads snapping toward the sound. The half-track's MG-42 swiveling. The officer gestures and they pivot, advancing toward Echo 33 with renewed purpose, boots pounding the earth in unison. Thorne and Vasquez shadow them from cover, parallel through the hedges, sweat soaking their collars as the sun beats down. By 1400, the unit deploys the decoys in the open field. 15 rubber trucks in column, driven by wires that twitch the canvas flaps, speakers blasting gear shifts and exhaust pops. Pyrotechnics add diesel plumes, smoke pots belching black clouds that sting the eyes from half a mile. Pinkerton watches from a concealed rise, megaphone ready. "Now!" he signals, and the convoy lurches forward, towed by hidden cables that groan under the strain. The Germans spot it from the crossroads, the half-track grinding to a halt as troops dive for ditches. Binoculars flash, the officer shouting into a field radio, his face alight with alarm. "Lieferungskonvoi! Amerikaner! Voll beladen!" The words carry on the breeze, urgent and disbelieving. They don't close in, wary of the escort of dummy jeeps flanking the trucks. But they observe, sketching furiously, cameras clicking. From their angle, it's a lifeline for the invading horde. Fuel bowsers, ammo rigs, all rolling toward the front, ripe for sabotage. Thorne exhales, the ruse holding, but as the Germans withdraw to call in artillery or air support, a new drone splits the sky, a Ju-87 Stuka, diving like a stooping falcon, sirens wailing their banshee cry. The unit scatters, decoys abandon mid-formation, rubber slapping the ground as they deflate in panic. Bombs whistle down, cratering the field in geysers of soil and wheat, the blasts shaking Thorne to his core. You duck with him, earth raining hot and gritty, the acrid reek of high explosives blotting out the world. They regroup at dusk, the convoy battered but intact, slipping away under cover of rain that turns the lanes to rivers of mud. The deception endures. German reserves chase phantoms, buying precious hours for the breakout. Yet Thorne, soaked and shivering in the jeep, feels the noose tightening. Illusions save lives, but each one chips away at the ghost's fragile armor. Night falls heavy, stars hidden by clouds, as they press on to the next shadow, the war's hunger unslaked. Rain lashes the windshield of the lead jeep, turning the sunken lane into a sluice of mud that grabs at the tires like greedy hands. Sergeant Elias Thorne hunches against the spray, the canvas top sagging under the downpour's weight, water pooling in his lap and soaking through to his skin. The cold bites deep, a Normandy chill that numbs fingers and stiffens joints, but he keeps his eyes on the road ahead, more shadow than path, flanked by hedges that whip past like black sentinels. You feel the jeep shudder with each pothole, the engines growl a defiant roar against the storm's howl, while Corporal Lena Vasquez grips the wheel, her knuckles pale, jaw clenched as she navigates the deluge. Behind them, the convoy strings out like a wounded serpent, trucks sloshing through ruts, headlights dimmed to slits that cut feeble yellow beams through the sheets of rain. Private Harlan Brooks rides in the back of Thorne's vehicle, his deflated decoy bundled beside him, water streaming off the rubber in rivulets that smell of wet canvas and defeat. "This weather's a gift," he shouts over the tumult, voice cracking with exhaustion. "Jerry won't fly in this soup, gives us breathing room to regroup." But his eyes betray the lie, darting to the rear where Lieutenant Arthur Pinkerton's jeep trails, its crumpled fender dragging sparks on the gravel. They push on for hours, the night a blur of wipers slapping and thunder rumbling like distant barrages. By 2200, they reach the fallback site, a derelict farmhouse on the outskirts of a copse, its thatched roof half caved from shelling, walls pocked with shrapnel scars that weep rainwater. The unit piles in, boots tracking mud across the flagstone floor, the air inside thick with the musty rot of abandoned livestock and the faint, lingering char of old fires. Medics light lanterns, hurricane globes that flicker shadows across faces etched with fatigue, while engineers drag crates inside, the wood groaning under the strain. Pinkerton shakes off like a dog, water flying from his helmet, and spreads a map on a scarred oak table, the surface sticky with spilled cider from God knows when. "Echo 44 by dawn," he declares, tracing the route with a dripping finger, his Brooklyn accent cutting through the patter on the roof. "Open ground near the Vira River, perfect for the big show. Inflate the tanks again, full cores illusion. Draw the 12th SS into a pocket where the 4th Armored can flank 'em." Vasquez nods, toweling her hair, strands escaping to frame her face in damp curls. She unpacks her charts, the paper crinkling as she plots sightlines, her pencil lead snapping once from the pressure. River mist will help, muffles sound, blurs visuals. But patrols are thick. We lost a scout truck to mines yesterday. Thorne slumps against a wall, peeling off his sodden jacket, the wool heavy as lead. The room's chill seeps into his bones, but he lights a Camel anyway. The match shielding cupped against the draft, flame dancing yellow before the smoke rises acrid and comforting. He's tallying the toll in his head, gear shredded, men shaken, but no ghosts lost yet. "We pull this off, and the breakout hits full steam," he says, exhaling a plume that mingles with the steam from drying boots. Patton's ghosts, buying time for the real thunder. Dawn breaks grey and sodden, the rain easing to a drizzle that beads on the hedgerows like tears. The convoy ghosts out at first light, jeeps muffled with exhaust baffles, creeping through fog-shrouded fields where the wheat stands knee-high, sodden and silent. Thorne rides point with Vasquez, the river's murmur growing louder, a silver thread glinting through the mist ahead. Echo 44 unfolds as a broad meadow hemmed by willows, the ground soft and treacherous underfoot, ideal for the illusion of a stalled advance, tanks mired, crews digging out. Unloading is a frenzy under the low clouds, crates pried open with the tang of wet wood, pumps wheezing to life as the inflatable Shermans take shape. The hiss punctuates the quiet, rubber expanding with reluctant sighs. The air filling with that inescapable synthetic reek, now muddied by the river's peaty breath. Pinkerton orchestrates from horseback, requisitioned from a nearby farm, the nag's hooves muffled in rags, directing teams to position the decoys in a V formation, as if probing a German strongpoint. "Treads forward, boys. Drag 'em deep for authenticity," he calls, his voice a stage whisper. Paint pots slung from the saddle like bandoliers. Brooks wires the sound array, speakers buried in the muck, their canvas covers blending with the terrain. He tests a loop, the deep rumble of idling radials, overlaid with the clatter of tank commanders shouting coordinates, "Gunner, traverse right, load he," and the sporadic burst of Koch's MGs. Thorne helps him place the pieces, hauling a rubber turret into place, its fake 50 cal swiveling on hidden pivots. The weight strains his back, muscles burning, but from the ridge across the river it looks real. 30 tanks, a dozen half-tracks, all hulking in the fog like predators at bay. By 1,000, the sight pulses with life. Pyrotechnics ready, smoke grenades for exhaust, flash pots for muzzle blasts, while Vasquez sets up the radio deception, her SCR-284 humming with phantom traffic, urgent calls for air support, feigned panic over bogged armor. Thorne climbs a willow for overwatch, branches creaking under him, leaves dripping cold on his collar. The mist swirls, carrying the distant crump of real fighting from the west, where the Allies grind toward Coutances. The Germans come at noon, heralded by the sputter of engines piercing the fog, a column of 3 Kubelwagens and a motorcycle squad from the 352nd, probing the river line. Thorne signals, and the illusion ignites. Speakers roar to life, the meadow shaking with the thunder of treads and the whip crack of fire. Smoke billows from vents, acrid and thick, veiling the decoys in war's haze. Flares pop skyward, their red glow staining the mist bloody, illuminating the rubber behemoths as they advance. Cables twitching wheels, creating the grind of motion. The lead Kubelwagen skids to a halt on the far bank, troops spilling out, rifles snapping up. An Unteroffizier peers through the murk, his face a mask of shock under the steel helmet, binoculars trembling as he counts hulls. "Panzer course, Die Amerikaner," he bellows, voice carrying like a clarion, urging his men to dig in. They radio furiously, antennas whipping in the breeze, reports flooding back, an entire armored corps, stalled but formidable, ripe for counterattack. From the German side, orders cascade, reserves pulled from the coast, 80mm batteries wheeled into position, Luftwaffe scrambled despite the clouds. Thorne watches it unfold, pulse sinking with the canned barrages, the air vibrating. But triumph curdles as spotters call in mortar fire, real tubes barking from hidden redoubts. The first rounds splash into the river, geysers of water and mud erupting, then walk onto the meadow. Shells crater the soft earth, 20 yards from the decoys. Shrapnel whistling like hornets, one fragment slicing Thorne's sleeve with a hot sting. "Hold position." Pinkerton hisses from below, but the unit evacuates in waves, deflating tanks in a chorus of hisses, rubber collapsing into sodden piles that sink into the mire. Vasquez drags Thorne down, her hand firm on his arm as they sprint for cover amid the willow thicket. A direct hit shreds a Sherman replica, the blast waves slamming them flat, dirt blasting their faces in a gritty roar. You choke on the smoke, the bitter tang of explosives overwhelming the rubber, ears ringing with the nearness of death. Brooks hauls gear, cord snagging while Pinkerton covers with his Thompson, bursts stitching the air to sell the fight. The mortars lift as the Germans, convinced of resistance, pull back to regroup, buying the Allies a day's grace, panzers diverted to chase the ghost. The unit slips away at dusk, the meadow a smoking ruin of illusions, jeeps fording the shallows with splashes that mask their retreat. Thorne binds his cut in the fading light, blood mixing with rain on his skin, the pain a sharp reminder. They've rolled the rubber again. Scouts reporting phantoms that tie up divisions. But as night claims the river, the ghosts tally their scars, gear lost, nerves frayed, the line between deception and doom blurring thinner. The war presses, demanding one more shadow before the dawn breaks true. Twilight deepens over the Via River, the drizzle weaving a veil that blurs the willow branches into ghostly fingers trailing in the current. Sergeant Elias Thorne presses a field dressing against his sliced arm, the gauze blooming red under the pressure, the sting sharp as a bayonet's kiss amid the chill. The jeeps idle low on the far bank, engines murmuring like conspirators. Their tires caked in river mud that clings with wet sucks as the unit regroups. You catch the metallic tang of blood mixing with the peaty reek of the water, the air heavy with the aftermath. Smoke from the meadow drifting on the breeze, carrying whispers of charred rubber and exploded earth. Corporal Lena Vasquez kneels beside him, her hands steady as she ties off the bandage, her dark eyes reflecting the last glimmers of daylight on the stream's surface. Hold still, that shrapnel nicked deep, but you'll live to haunt another day, she says, her voice a low anchor in the fading light. Rain patters on her helmet, dripping down her neck in cold rivulets that she ignores. Private Harlan Brooks hauls the last crate from the shallows, water sloshing from his boots, his puppeteer's frame bent under the weight of speakers, tangled like fishing nets. Lost 3 trucks back there, but the Corps report's sticking. Intercepts say Jerry's pulling the 2nd Panzer from Caen to chase our shadows. Lieutenant Arthur Pinkerton dismounts from his battered jeep, the vehicle listing to one side, exhaust coughing blue into the mist. His face is a mask of grime and resolve. A paint streaks like war paint across his cheeks. One more play, ghosts, he announces, gathering the team around a hooded lantern that casts flickering pools on the muddy bank. The light dances over maps unrolled on a waterproof poncho, the paper crinkling as fingers trace final routes. Normandy's breaking wide, Eisenhower's orders via Harris, ultimate deception at Grid Foxtrot 11, dawn tomorrow. Full deployment, tanks, artillery, the works. Make 'em think the hammer's falling here, while the real breakout punches south to Avranches. Thorne nods, flexing his bandaged arm, the pain a dull throb sinking with his pulse. The river gurgles past, swollen and dark, carrying fallen leaves like dispatches from the front. He's no stranger to the grind, nights in England inflating prototypes under blackout, the first drops into France with heart in throat. But this feels like the crescendo, the lie that could crack the bocage open. Foxtrot 11's exposed plateau, Luftwaffe heaven if the weather clears, he mutters, lighting a soggy Camel, the match sputtering before catching, smoke curling upward to join the fog. The convoy forms under cover of night, headlights off, navigating by compass and the faint glow of fireflies winking in the hedges. Vasquez drives, the jeep's wipers slapping a steady rhythm against the relentless patter, while Thorne scans the flanks, M1 Garand across his lap, its oiled stock slick with condensation. Brooks rides rear security, his Thompson submachine gun at the ready, the drum magazine heavy against his thigh. The path winds through sodden fields, the wheat bowing under the weight of water, releasing a fresh green scent that battles the exhaust's bite. Hours blur. Checkpoints whispered past with coded challenges, a tense halt when a patrol's engine growls nearby, holding breath until it fades. They reach Foxtrot 11 by 0400, a windswept plateau rising above the floodplains, its grass cropped short by grazing sheep long since fled. The horizon a jagged line of Norman spires silhouetted against a starry vault, peeking through thinning clouds. Unloading is silent frenzy. Crates dragged from trucks with muffled thuds, pumps inflating in the pre-dawn hush, the hiss like serpents uncoiling. Rubber tanks swell first, Shermans and Pershings hulking into view, their treads etched with mud from dragged molds, barrels trained on phantom foes. Pinkerton moves among them like a conductor, brush in hand, adding final touches. Bullet chips from paint-flecked rivets, exhaust stains blooming black on the rears. Vasquez sets up the command post in a shallow depression, her radio array humming to life, broadcasting a web of deceit, divisional chatter, feigned logistics woes, all laced with static to mimic frontline strain. Big Red 1 to Sector Command, armor bogged, requesting air. Wait, that's us, she quips softly, keying the mic, her voice steady as the first birds stir. Thorn helps Brooks emplace the artillery decoys, 105s and 155s in battery line, their rubber tubes yawning wide, flanked by dummy prime movers with canvas loads painted as powder kegs. The air fills with the inevitable rubber tang, now laced with the ozone of dew evaporating under exertion sweat. By 0600, the plateau teems with illusion. 50 tanks in wedge formation, 20 guns thundering canned fire from hidden speakers, sound trucks weaving a tapestry of war, treads grinding, sergeants bellowing, the sporadic whine of P-47s overhead in recordings. Pyrotechnics ignite at dawn's first blush, smoke pots belching diesel plumes that coil skyward, muzzle flashes popping in sequence to simulate a rolling barrage. You stand with Thorn on the rim, the ground trembling under the vibrators, heart pounding with the engineered fury. The scent of burning oil simulated so thick it chokes. The Germans respond swiftly. Scouts from the 116th Panzer Division cresting the eastern rise, Opel trucks grinding up the slope, their canvas flaps whipping in the breeze. Binoculars glint as officers spill out, faces paling under Feldgrau caps, pointing at the sprawl below. Gesamtes Korps, Panzer und Artillerie, one shouts, voice carrying on the wind, urgent into a field phone that crackles with command frenzy. Motorcycles fan out, riders sketching furiously, while spotter planes, a pair of FW-189s, circle high, their shadows rippling over the decoys like doubts. From above, it's flawless. An American armored thrust, massive and committed, poised to shatter the line. Thorn's breath catches as the lead scout edges closer, submachine gun slung. Curiosity warring with caution. But the barrage intensifies, speakers roaring, flashes strobing, the plateau a cauldron of make-believe hell. The Germans hold at 500 yards, radioing the apocalypse. Core strength assault, coordinates precise, urging immediate counter. From Berlin to the front, wheels turn. Divisions rerouted, fuel siphoned, the 12th SS yanked from reserves. Luftwaffe sorties launch, but the clouds thicken again, grounding them in frustration. As the sun climbs, burning off the mist to reveal the lie's full glory, Thorn signals withdraw. The unit deflates in reverse ballet, rubber sighing into bundles, trucks loaded with hasty efficiency. No shells this time. The deception too grand, too convincing for rash probes. They slip away southward. The plateau abandoned to its phantoms, jeeps vanishing into the folds of terrain like smoke. By midday, word filters back via intercepts. The Avranches' breakout surges unopposed, Patton's real armor pouring through the gap, the Ghost Army's shadows the unseen shield. Thorn rides in silence, bandage itching, the jeep bouncing toward a forward base near Isigny. Vasquez glances over, a rare smile cracking her fatigue. We did it, Elias. Rubber rolled, corpse reported, Normandy's ours. Pinkerton, trailing with Brooks, whoops once, the sound swallowed by the engine. Ghosts to the end. But Thorn feels the weight lift, the scars a badge now. In the distance, real tanks rumble, steel thunder echoing their illusions. The war turns, deceptions etched into history's fog. The 23rd fading into legend, artists and actors who painted victory with air and paint. As the sun warms the bocage, Thorn exhales, the river's murmur fading behind. The ghosts rest, their haunt complete, the dawn breaking true at last.